Hello boys and girls, nice to see you again. Well, today I'm going to read a story about dinosaurs and about one of our favourite characters, Katie. And the story's called Katie and the Dinosaurs. It's written and illustrated by James Mayhew. Let's find out what happens inside the story. There's Katie with perhaps a baby dinosaur. Oh, look at the size of that. Come and look, Grandma. Come and see the dinosaurs, said Katie. Katie loved the Natural History Museum, and she wanted to show her Grandma everything. They're just a load of old bones, said Grandma. Well, you're really old, said Katie. There must have been dinosaurs alive when you were little. I'm not that old, snorted Grandma, looking for somewhere to sit down. They found a seat next to a skeleton of a very fierce-looking dinosaur. Why don't you go and look at your horrible dinosaurs while I have 40 winks, said Grandma. They're not horrible, sniffed Katie, but I do wish they weren't just skeletons. And she skipped off on her own, taking her picnic lunch with her just in case she got hungry. Katie saw all sorts of dinosaurs. Some had spikes, others had horns or wings or long tails. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine they were alive. She thought they must have been very frightening with their sharp teeth and claws. Next to one of the dinosaurs was a corridor. Katie set off down it to make sure she hadn't missed anything worth seeing. The corridor was long and dark, and there was no one in sight. Katie began to feel scared. She looked for a way out sign, but there didn't seem to be one. She was lost. Now what do I do? Said Katie crossly. She came to a big door with a notice on it that said, "Absolutely no admittance whatsoever." "I'll just take a quick look," said Katie, and she opened the door and stepped through. The door led outside, and there in front of her was a dinosaur. It was no bigger than Katie, but it was a real live one. "Hello," said Katie. "Who are you?" "Hadrosaurus," said the dinosaur. "Who are you?" "I'm Katie," said Katie, "and I think I'm lost." "I'm lost too," said Hadrosaurus. "I was chased by a Tyrannosaurus Rex." "Isn't that the really fierce dinosaur?" asked Katie. "That's right," said Hadrosaurus. "Now I don't know how to get home." "Don't worry," said Katie. "I'll be able to see where we are from the top of this hill," and she clambered up a steep slope. "This isn't a hill," said Hadrosaurus, scrambling up behind her. What was it? Katie gasped. "Oh, it's an Apatosaurus." She was very high up, and she could see for miles. "Now show me where you live," said Katie. "I think it's somewhere over there, along the river bank," said Hadrosaurus. Katie looked across the river. "What are those funny-looking birds?" she asked. "Pterosaurs," said Hadrosaurus. "Watch out!" One of the pterosaurs spotted Katie's yellow scarf. It swooped towards her, and before Katie could duck, it had snatched the scarf from her. "Hey, that's mine, bring it back," yelled Katie. But the pterosaur flew far away. The Apatosaurus started moving. She was getting fed up with those two noisy creatures jumping about on her back. The Apatosaurus lumbered down to the river for a nice cool bathe. She was so huge that Katie and Hadrosaurus just hung on and hardly got wet at all. Katie looked across the water. All sorts of strange creatures were swimming there. She recognized some of them from the museum. The ichthyosaurs with their long snouts and the plesiosaurus with its snake-like head. Before long, the Apatosaurus reached the edge of the water. "Let's go," said Katy. Followed by Hadrosaurus, she slid all the way down to the tip of Apatosaurus's tail, and they landed in a giggling heap on the ground. "Which way now?" said Katy. "Into the jungle," said Hadrosaurus. The jungle was hot and sticky. Through the trees, Katy could see a herd of enormous dinosaurs. "What on earth are those?" asked Katy. "I don't like the look of them." "Only stegosaurs," said Hadrosaurus. "They won't hurt us." "Are you sure?" said Katy, as one stegosaur licked its lips. "Oh yes, they only eat plants," said Hadrosaurus. So Katy gave them some grass, and they went on through the jungle. Suddenly, Hadrosaurus let out a squeal. There was his family. They hugged him, and they hugged Kate too for bringing him home. "I hope you're not going to eat me," worried Katy. "Of course not," said Hadrosaurus. "We're plant eaters too." That reminded Katy that she hadn't eaten her lunch yet. She was feeling quite hungry by now, but she politely shared her cucumber sandwiches and chocolate biscuits. She saved her meat pie for later. Plant-eating dinosaurs from far and wide picked up the smell of Katy's sandwiches and padded across the rocks towards her. There was a spiky Styracosaurus and a Triceratops with his horns, the Iguanodon with his sharp thumbs, and all kinds of ankylosaurs. The dinosaurs shook some strange-looking fruits out of the trees, and they all ate until they were full. It was the best picnic Katy had ever had. Suddenly, another dinosaur crashed out of the jungle. It was Tyrannosaurus Rex. He had been following Katy and Hadrosaurus. He grunted and growled and ground his teeth and swished his tail and stamped his scaly feet. He was hungry, and he didn't want cucumber sandwiches or chocolate biscuits. He wanted meat. He wanted Katy. "Quick, run for your life," said Hadrosaurus. Tyrannosaurus Rex thundered after Katy and the dinosaurs as they ran through the jungle towards the river. Katy was out of breath, but she kept on running. At last she could see the museum ahead of her. If only she had stayed safely inside. Then she remembered the meat pie. She tore open her lunchbox and threw a piece at the Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Tyrannosaurus stopped in his tracks. He sniffed the piece of pie. He ate it up. He liked it so much that Katy threw him the rest, even though she had been saving it for herself. And the Tyrannosaurus Rex padded off into the jungle again, clutching Katy's lunchbox. "Phew, that was close," said Katy. It was getting late now, so Katy turned to say goodbye to Hadrosaurus. "I do wish you could come home with me," she said, "but Grandma would only scream and make a fuss." "I'm happy here with my family anyway," said Hadrosaurus. He gave Katy a lick. "Thank you for helping me find them." "Blah!" spluttered Katy, as dinosaurs have very sloppy tongues. Then she went back through the museum door. This time Katy easily found her way back to Grandma, who was waiting where she had left her. "Where on earth have you been?" asked Grandma. "I've seen all kinds of dinosaurs," said Katy. "Why don't you come and have a look too?" "All right," said Grandma. "Where do we start?" "This way," said Katy. taking her hand, off they went. And here's a page about how to get creative with Katie. Here are all the dinosaurs I met in this book, and underneath each one is a guide on how to say their names. Dinosaurs come in all shapes and sizes. Some had spikes, others had fins, some had very long necks, and some had terribly sharp teeth. I've had a go at inventing my own dinosaur. I called it the Hadrosaurus. Do you like it? Why don't you draw a picture of your own imaginary dinosaur? Don't forget to give it a name. Love, Katie. Here are some other Katie stories, wonderful adventures. And there's the back of the book. And here's the back and front cover. And here's the front cover, Katie and the Dinosaurs. What an adventure that was. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.